Welcome back to the Caregiver Minute, where every weekday family and professional caregivers gather to refine their skills, gain inspiration, and prepare to serve. Many times throughout my life, I've heard some people say, "Oh, I'm an optimist," and others have said, "Oh, I'm a pessimist," or they've accused others of being a pessimist. And then I've heard some people say, "I'm not an optimist or a pessimist, I'm a realist." Well, whether they intended to or not, I think that people that make those comments are actually highlighting three different approaches that you and I can have toward life. These are approaches that affect us when we have a loved one that gets an Alzheimer's diagnosis, or when we start a new job, or as we progress through life. You might consider these approaches level 1, level 2, and level 3. And I call them that because they represent a progression that many of us go through. When we're younger, a lot of us are pretty optimistic. We think we can conquer the world. The sky's the limit. All the possibilities are available to us. And we set out in life feeling like nothing wrong will ever happen. Now, that overly optimistic view is oftentimes dashed to pieces the minute something falls apart in our lives. We get just a little bit older and we realize that there are some hard things in the workplace. We do have some limitations. Oftentimes, really accomplishing our goals requires a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and no certainty that we're going to achieve the goal for a long period of time. And some people start responding to the ambiguity in life and the lack of clear path by becoming very pessimistic. They become down on everything. Now, when people have these two extreme views, overly optimistic or overly pessimistic, often they flit from job to job, or their mood changes on a dime. These are people who start a new job and they are wildly optimistic that it's going to be the best thing that they've ever done. And just a few weeks into it, they realize that every workplace has some hard things. And every workplace likely has some people that we're going to have a little bit of friction with. And the minute they encounter that, the pendulum swings the other way and they become dramatically pessimistic about things. And pretty quickly, they're finding another job. And if you look at the pattern, they flit from one job to the next and one relationship to the next over and over and over. And it's driven by polarized thinking, by those extreme views that it's all one way or all another way. A more mature view is a balanced view. This is level 3 thinking. This is when we have enough experience in life and we've sat back and we've had to deal with ambiguity in life enough that we start to recognize every situation has two sides to it. We can choose to view things very positively, or we can choose to view things in an extremely negative way, or we can have a balanced perspective and recognize there's some things that we might need to work on, and there's some things that we can wholeheartedly embrace. There might be things that are irritating to us, and things that are worth celebrating. And the real question is, how do we make meaningful steps forward and sit with both the positive and the negative side of things in life? Now, I'm not advocating staying in a toxic workplace or staying in a toxic relationship just because we recognize everything has its ups and downs. Sometimes we do need to make a meaningful choice to leave and to truly shift our situation in life. But more often than not, things will be improved if we have a more balanced perspective. Consider a dementia diagnosis. That's a pretty devastating diagnosis for any one individual to get or for a family member to be getting. And some people have a wildly optimistic view at the beginning of it that their situation is going to be different than a lot of other people's, that maybe they're not going to have to deal with some of the hard things that others go through. And although that's a possibility, the hard days inevitably come. There's nothing easy about having cognitive decline to the point that you warrant a dementia diagnosis. And sometimes when people hit those challenging days, the pendulum swings the other direction, and every day is a bad day, and they become so grumpy about all of it. I'm not saying that there isn't cause to mourn over a dementia diagnosis, but there are still good days. There are still things that go wildly better than we could possibly have imagined. There's still opportunities to learn. There are ways to grow closer to people than we could in any other way when we're faced with a difficult situation like that, and we go through it together with each other's help. As we learn to sit with the black and white, the positive and the negative, the ups and downs, and enter that level 3 kind of approach toward life that's more balanced and more comfortable with some of the ambiguities of life without becoming embittered by them. Life becomes richer and we become more centered. And when we do that, we have an opportunity to influence those around us in positive ways and to help them through some of the difficult situations in life. So today, I invite you to consider a situation that you find yourself in. It could be relationally, it could be with a health challenge, whatever it is. I invite you to think about whether you're in level 1, overwhelming optimism, level 2, irrational pessimism, or level 3, you're balancing out both sides of that, and you have a little bit more of a mature approach. I think it could be helpful for any of us to consider those questions in any situation that we find ourselves in. I hope that makes a difference for you, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of the Caregiver Minute.